Good afternoon, and welcome to today's discussion on the topic of animal cruelty at the Grand National horse races. The Grand National is one of the most famous horse races in the world, held annually at Aintree Racecourse in Liverpool, England. While the race is a spectacle that draws millions of viewers from around the world, it has also been the subject of controversy due to concerns about animal welfare. Background: the Grand National is a steeplechase race, which means that horses are required to jump over a series of fences and obstacles as they race around the course. The race is notoriously difficult, and has been described as one of the toughest horse races in the world. However, the high speed and challenging nature of the race also makes it dangerous for the horses. Animal cruelty concerns. Animal welfare activists have raised concerns about the Grand National for years. They argue that the race is inherently cruel, and puts the horses at risk of serious injury or death. In recent years, there have been a number of high-profile incidents at the Grand National that have fueled these concerns. For example, in 2011, 2 horses were killed during the race, and several others suffered serious injuries. In 2012, a horse named Synchronized had to be put down after falling during the race, and another horse, according to Pete, was also injured and later had to be euthanized. These incidents sparked outrage among animal welfare advocates, who called for the race to be banned. Critics of the Grand National argue that the race is too dangerous for the horses, and that it puts their lives at risk for the sake of entertainment. They point to the high speed and the challenging nature of the course, which can cause horses to fall and suffer serious injuries. They also argue that the use of whips and other forms of physical punishment can cause unnecessary pain and suffering for the animals. Defenders of the Grand National argue that the race is an important part of British culture, and that it generates significant revenue for the racing industry. They also argue that measures have been put in place to improve safety and reduce the risk of injury to the horses. The controversy surrounding the Grand National horse race is likely to continue in the years to come. While some efforts have been made to improve safety measures and reduce the risk of injury to the horses, many animal welfare activists argue that these measures are not sufficient. In response to the concerns raised by animal welfare groups, some organizations have called for a ban on the Grand National race. However, it is unlikely that such a ban will be put in place in the near future, as the race is a significant source of revenue for the horse racing industry and is deeply ingrained in British culture. Instead, it is more likely that efforts will continue to be made to improve the safety of the race and reduce the risk of injury to the horses. For example, organizers may continue to make changes to the course and to the rules governing the use of whips and other forms of physical punishment. In the long term, it is possible that concerns about animal welfare may lead to changes in the way that horse racing is conducted more broadly. For example, there may be a greater emphasis on animal welfare and safety measures in all horse racing events, not just the Grand National. Ultimately, the future of the Grand National horse race will depend on a number of factors, including public opinion, industry practices, and government regulations. As the debate over animal welfare in horse racing continues, it will be important for all stakeholders to work together to find solutions that balance the interests of the horses, the industry, and the public. Conclusion: in conclusion, the Grand National horse race has been the subject of controversy due to concerns about animal welfare. While defenders of the race argue that it is an important part of British culture and generates significant revenue, animal welfare activists argue that it is inherently cruel and puts the horses at risk of serious injury or death. Ultimately, it is up to each individual to decide whether they believe the race is ethical and should continue. Thank you for joining us today for this important discussion.